Welcome everyone, Christine here with a discussion about Total War Warhammer 3, Patch 4.0, Shadows of Change DLC. And in this video I want to talk about the Tomb Kings for a little bit. It's not necessarily going to be a very long video, though there is something very important to talk about the Tomb Kings. There is certainly a UI bug over here with the Books of Nagash. But one of the reasons I started this particular campaign and got it to turn 19 over here is because I wanted to test whether or not anything has changed for the Tomb Kings. It has not. And while I certainly didn't necessarily expect Creative Assembly to go over the Tomb Kings in patch 4.0, given the priorities of DLC, which are Kislev, Cafe, and Siege, and I've already talked about what they've done for Kislev, Cafe, and Siege in previous videos, I did feel that there was one particular issue that Creative Assembly should have addressed a fairly long time ago with the Tomb Kings. An issue that is not present, for instance, for the Chaos Dwarves, who also have a similar situation, at least when it comes to their Realms of Chaos campaign. See, in both the case of the Chaos Dwarves and Tomb Kings, they have objectives that they need to capture on the campaign map in order to fulfill their campaign conditions. It's not a victory condition for the Tomb Kings, but obviously it is a very important condition to get, and that's getting the Books of Nagash because of the faction-wide benefits you get from these books. Now, in the case of the Chaos Dwarves, Creative Assembly does allow you to get those books either by capturing, or not the books, the relics, either by capturing settlements or getting them from military alliance, for an alliance with the faction that controls the settlement. This was not, however, implemented for the Tomb Kings, and it doesn't just affect the Tomb Kings, it affects Manfred, it affects Volkmar, and it affects their campaigns in very substantial ways. And this has not been changed in patch 4.0, and it is something I feel should have been changed and should be changed going forward. So, here's the problem with the Books of Nagash. You have two ways of getting the books. Some are in rogue armies that only spawn if you're playing a Tomb Kings campaign. The location of the books does vary, but you'll always have a book that's going to be in the White Tower of Hoeth. But dependent on who you're playing, the rest of the books are going to be in different locations. Here I am playing as Katep, and even though I have a military alliance with Morathi, I have not been able to get her book that she has in the ancient city of Quintex. And this, the effects of the books do vary dependent on the campaign. Like whenever you start a campaign, the book effects will be randomized. So this one is not necessarily too substantial. 20% come from trade tariffs and campaign line of sight. That doesn't matter. But I literally have a military alliance with her, and I am not getting the book. Even worse, I can sell, for instance, the Plain of Dogs element and make her my vassal. She's basically now my subordinate, just to put it politely. And this is obviously something you want to do in a Tomb Kings campaign, because one of their strengths actually is diplomacy. Tomb Kings are not hated by anyone in particular. They don't have any strong aversion with any particular race. And this is one of the things that makes them pretty solid in the campaign, because it does open up a lot of diplomatic possibilities. And needless to say, the vassalization options also give you a significant amount of possibilities in the campaign that other races just don't have, and a significant amount of power. Because once Morathi gets her economy sorted out, she will be generating a ridiculous sum of money, and I'll be gaining a good portion of that money for myself. But even though she's a vassal, I still can't get her book. The only way to get her book is to literally take the ancient city of Quintex for myself, wipe her out, or reduce her to other settlements, and that's the only way to get that particular book. This is the problem with the Books of Nagash, and one of the things I had hoped Creative Assembly would change with this patch. I don't think it's a major change, though people are talking about how there's apparently only one person working on the bug fixes in Creative Assembly for the game as a whole. And I do think, I think the timeline that they had for this DLC and this patch was certainly optimistic, if you will, in that they were trying to do a lot in a very short period of time. But when you see issues like this in the game, and this has been since the launch of the game. In fact, I'm pretty sure it was also in Warhammer 2, but you expect better as a player. The fact that they haven't made such a change among the many, many issues is, as far as I see it, representative of Creative Assembly at the moment as a company. And certainly something I do see as a problem. Because if they can't fix issues like this, what about the bigger issues? What about the huge list of bugs? They have fixed some issues, but they've also introduced a lot of new bugs as well in patch 4.0. When will those issues be fixed? We have no idea. We have no reason to believe that Creative Assembly is even going to try fixing those issues going forward. Like I've talked about the cafe caravan situation. That is a pretty major problem as I see it. And I imagine that's probably going to be fixed as quickly as possible, hopefully. But there's also issues like this, and this kind of issue and other issues that do affect the Tomb Kings, like their army limitations, do affect the enjoyment of their campaigns. The Tomb Kings are good as a race, but they're not fun to play at all, really, in a campaign. They're very, very boring to play in point of fact at the moment. And it's not because of design issues of the race, it's not because the power isn't there, it's because you have these kind of issues that do reduce the enjoyment of a particular campaign by a fairly significant amount. That's all I had to say. Questin here signing out. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and enable notifications. Stay tuned for more.